gives a sort of 3D quality. It really pops out. Got to be careful with these colours in the background. Right, now for this oil painting the birch trees, I'm going to be doing it in about 3 layers. Now the first layer, I'm going to dilute it with some Gamsol Odourless mineral spirits. If you look at the reference photo, you can see the dark background here is quite black. Now I've decided here to mix my own blacks because I want to give the black, sort of like the dark, some sort of depth as your eyes going back into the wood. If I was to use a pure black here, it would just kill the painting really. Now I've mixed my own black here using burnt umber, Quinacridone red and ultramarine blue. So this is like a black dark colour. Now for the lighter parts of the background, I've just added some cadmium red. Right, while I'm just filling in this background, I'd just like to say that I'm not really looking to do a traditional painting here. I'm looking for a more sort of contemporary feel. Now this will show later on in the video when I start doing the foliage. It's a sort of style I've used on my birch tree paintings in the past, and it's proven very successful. Right, I'm just going to put the tree trunks in now. I'm just going to mark out where the tree trunks are going. So I'll do that with a rag. So I'll just show you. I'm going to do that. This has to be done within the next hour or so, because once this is dried, I will then have to paint the white tree trunks on top of this dark, and I don't particularly like doing that, so I like to wipe at least some of the paint off. Just make sure they're not too straight. So don't have to be too precise with this. I'll just zoom in for you. And because it's quite wet, it wipes off very easily. Just try to follow the natural shape of this tree trunk. So it doesn't want to look like a telegraph pole. Right, now that's how I'll be doing the foreground trees. Now some of the background trees, there's just a little bit of light hitting them. I'll just show you, I'll just do one here. Just don't really apply quite as much pressure. And it sort of, they don't sort of start at the top and finish at the bottom of the painting. I just want to get the darks in between these tree trunks here. This is basically where the forest is going back, so I want to get that sense of depth within the forest. So it looks black. If you look at the reference photograph here, at first glance it just looks black. If we zoom into this reference photograph, we can sort of like see other colours in there. There's some greens, and the black isn't really black, it's more of a, it's almost like a dark purpley type colour really. So basically I've mixed my own, I won't call it black, I've mixed my own dark colour. Now to get this dark colour I've used ultramarine, Quinacridone red and the burnt umber. This really gives me like this sort of dark sort of purple grey, which is perfect, just gives the painting that sort of depth. There are just hints of green in this background. So to get this colour I've mixed cadmium yellow and phalo blue. It's just given me this lovely green colour here. Now these background tree trunks here just seem to sort of fade out of the dark, so I just want to get these fading at the bottom here. Just brush over that part very lightly, just to make it appear as it just fades out of the darkness. Doing this with these trunks in the background, it really does add to that sort of depth. It gives a sort of 3D quality to the painting. I think in hindsight, the first coat of paint on this should have been a little bit darker. I do want these to be fairly light, but this certainly I could have done with it being a little bit darker, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest, at all. Right, I'm just going to put some greens in here now. Now I'm working wet on wet here, because I want the greens to sort of blend in slightly. So as you can see, I'm just suggesting these greens. What I'll do is I'll just brush over them again, just to blend them in a little bit. Now I just want to pick up some of the dark autumnal colours that are sort of further back, if you will. Now these, I'm happy to put these on again, like I did with the greens, wet on wet, so these are just sort of blend in with the darks on the background. Now the colours I'm using for this, I've mixed some cadmium red with some burnt umber, and I've got some cadmium yellow. So we've just zoomed in here just to show how we get these sort of autumnal colours that are sort of set back out of focus. Just another addition to create even more depth in the painting. I don't want to overdo these because I don't want to knock all the dark off completely. This background's all dry now, so I'm going to start painting the birch trees in now. So if we look at the photograph, if we take a close look at an individual tree here, well, it's not just white, is it? There are highlights of white on there, but this is sort of like a bluish grey colour to it. So I've decided to use some titanium white with ultramarine blue. Now I've got two values here. Now as you can see, they're a little bit too blue, these, so I'm just going to put a tiny amount of black with these, just to knock that blue off a little bit, but I still want the blue to show, but not too much. So we just put some black in there. This is ivory black. Just see what happens here. That's fine. That's just knock that blue off, but it's still sort of like a bluish grey now, isn't it? So do the same over this side. This is the lighter value of the two blue greys. This, of course, because we're mixing this on the palettes, is pure guesswork. We won't be able to see the true value or the true colour until we start using it on the painting. Make sure they're thoroughly mixed. Now I'll try this darker value. See how that's looking. Right, well basically the darker value there is really what I want for the light value, if that makes sense. So that's perfect for the light value. So we need a darker colour. It's just, as you look at the reference photograph again, you can see those birch tree trunks, they just have that sort of dark sort of area, shadow, just going down straight in the middle, just slightly darker. I think it's this darker area right down the middle that gives the trunk its sort of round shape. So it's so important to do this. We don't want them looking flat. I've just zoomed into this section of this tree trunk here just to show you exactly how I go about painting this trunk, just to get that sort of round appearance. Working wet on wet like this means it blends in very nicely. Always tend to go a little bit slow just at the start until I get into the swing of exactly how I'm going to be doing this. Once I've worked out how to do one tree trunk, then I can do the rest fairly quickly. I'll just put some white on here just to show you. You can get that sort of round effect. Just put the highlight down on the right hand side of this tree. Normally I will put this white on when the rest of it is fairly dry, but I don't think it matters too much. Now you see how we've got that sort of round effect there. Once I've done this on all the tree trunks and it's all dry, then I'll start putting the dark features in of the birch trees. But what I'll do, I'll just show you if I can do it on here. Shouldn't really do it wet on wet, but I'm just going to have a quick play. I will be doing this later when it's dry. Now I'm actually using Ivory black for this, no bluing at all. Right, now you can see how that, just that little bit there, it really pops out from the background. Now that's what we want, that's the beauty of these, painting these birch trees. It's quite an effective sort of subject to paint, is this. I'm just going to start painting some of these trees in the background. Well, ideally I'd like to make these almost look out of focus really. I want to put a little bit of extra blue and black with these. So the idea is just to get these to look like they're actually in the background. I don't want these to come forward. I want these to be set back from the main trees in the foreground. And parts of the tree trunk will be disappearing into the foliage, so I don't need to put too much detail in this. Just keep those edges nice and soft, with that sort of out of focus appearance. I've decided just to scumble a little bit of shading, just a small amount of dark on my brush. I think these marks here are actually called lenticels on the birch tree. They appear on other trees as well, but they're quite distinctive, aren't they, on the birch tree trunks. Okay, I've finished these birch tree trunks now. It's quite surprising, isn't it, when you get these black marks on, how effective these trunks really are. Now this only works, mind you, when you get that sort of roundness to the trunk. So it just wouldn't work quite as well at all if they were just flat. Now it's onto this autumn foliage. So if you have a quick look at this reference photo again, you can see the various colours we've got here with yellows, reds, browns. So to get these colours I'm using yellow ochre, burnt umber, cadmium red, cadmium yellow and some white. Now I've mixed quite a few of these colours together here just to sort of try and match up what I can see on the reference photograph. So we'll get cracking with that now. I'm just starting with this mix that I've got here. One of the darker colours. I'll probably work from dark to light on this. I'm using a rigger here just to suggest some of these fine branches. Now I'm not going to be too detailed with these, they're just suggestions, that's all. Okay, I'll just add a few finishing touches here with a palette knife. Got to be careful with these colours in the background, this foliage, because there's quite a few colours here and I don't want to get them mixed up together. We'll just end up with a pile of mud here instead of foliage, so just got to be careful. Just want to blend them just slightly, but not too much. It's so easy when doing foliage like this to actually get carried away and just end up with a big brown muddy mess. So you've really got to hold back, and you've just got to know when enough is enough. When it comes to large brown muddy messes on the painting, I am talking from experience. Been there a few times in the past. You always say you learn from your mistakes, and if that's the case, I must have learnt one heck of a lot.